every time we have you on, there's always something else to talk about. First thought of you, Ricky Steamboat's A&E bio is coming up on Sunday.
Mhm.
You know, when they think of Ricky Steamboat's greatest opponent, of course, they talk about the Nature Boy, Ric Flair. Whether it was in Mid-Atlantic for the United States Championship or whether it was for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship, I think you've been on record saying that, without a doubt, Ricky Steamboat was, if not one of the greatest opponent you ever had in your career.
He's one of the two greatest wrestlers of all time. The other one being Shawn Michaels. Not just opponents. The difference between Steamboat and Shawn is Ricky can't work. Ricky never worked heel because Ricky doesn't have it in him to be a heel. Shawn is a great babyface, but Shawn can be a prick, as we all know. You know, he's growing out of that era, but Shawn Michaels was a hell of a heel. So, but I think it's in terms of in-ring performance, I can't think of anybody better than Ricky Steamboat.
Nate, we all know about the chemistry that you had with Ricky Steamboat. I don't know if this is a difficult question or not, but did you feel you had better chemistry with Steamboat or with Dusty?
Well, it's two different kind of matches. Steamboat and I there were no rest holds. We just attacked each other for an hour. With me and Dusty, it was a slower pace. I had phenomenal chemistry with Dusty, but I think that for the enjoyment of the fans, I believe Steamboat and I could go on Raw tomorrow and have the best match on the show. In other words, a match from '89.
Right.
People would walk away saying, "Jesus Christ!" You know, there's no moonsaults, but had there been a need or a necessity to do moonsaults back then, certainly Steamboat was an athlete of enough quality to do that, right? I don't know about me, but I certainly could have caught him.
I mean, for myself, Dave, Bully, I mean, just from a straight up fan point of view, there was nobody, especially in your prime, that you did not make, even if you did not have chemistry. I go back and watch all your matches, and I'm like, God, Rick was so great. He made everybody look great, whether it was Mike Jackson on a television match to Dusty Rhodes later in the Omni. You made everybody a credible opponent.
George South, my greatest opponent.
Yep, George South on TV. You're 100% right. Like
I said to George, today you're going to be Ricky Steamboat.
So, Rick, that's interesting to me because we would never see anything like that happen today, especially on TV. Why did you make the decision to do that?
I just never felt that squashing somebody, and I don't know what you can accomplish in 2 minutes. I mean, a Bruiser Brody, that type of personality, that type of size and strength, and that aggressive, but I just didn't see a guy my size just being able to just crush somebody in 2 minutes. The way I felt about it, if I was 6'5" and 300, no problem. But I was, basically just an average sized guy. And I just felt if the guy could work, which Mike could, and obviously George could, I'd rather have 6-7 minutes with it. And believe me, I argued with numerous bookers about that, but I just believed I could have a better match and make people more aware of my skills as much as the people we're working with. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes. And Nate, you bring up the word.
Those guys made us. I mean, it's called doing a favor, but you know what I mean? Those guys made us.
Nate, you bring up the word working, which I believe is a lost art form these days. Obviously, you could go out there and work and just do what we do on the fly. Are there any wrestlers out there, in your opinion, today who can still go out there and work like you did?
Yeah, I think Orton and AJ can.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure Randy he'd be very comfortable going out there and calling a match. I feel like AJ could do that too. I'm not familiar enough. I mean, a lot of guys with a lot of talent. I'm just not familiar enough with what preparation they put into their match. Does that make sense?
Sure.
I mean, I tell you, well, even when I go to the shows today, I forget how exhausting these rehearsals are and how much time they spend practicing. Geez, I mean, I swear. And I've always enjoyed watching it, but now when I go, I think, my God, I just think of all the years I got the arena at 7 o'clock, put my stout out. I didn't talk to my opponent. We just went out there and worked. And they trusted me to call the match and to feel the crowd. And I don't know people, in all fairness, I don't think they've had to learn how to do that, but the crowd, you just can't always prepare for something and then the people not respond the way you want them to. Then if you don't know what you're doing, you're screwed. And we see that all the time. When all of a sudden they're booing 1 minute, the next minute they're supposed to be cheering. And then the other thing is, and I learned this from Dory Funk Jr. When I would get Steamboat down and he would start to come back, Dory would say to me, or any opponent, when he starts to come back, give him boom, 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 then cut him back off again. And then, get it on for 10 seconds. And then 10, boom, 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 come a little further. And then eat him up again, right? And then when the crowd is really flipped, give them the comeback. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Nowadays it's take a bump, and half the times the heel is back up on his feet before the baby face, which makes no sense after these spectacular bumps. And I'm not criticizing it, but that's the way the business is. But it is. I don't think the fans enjoy it. I think they enjoy the show, and they enjoy the personalities. But I don't feel like there's a drama that there used to be.
Rick,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Rick, a lot of veterans these days are critical about what they see from the performers today. Like you just mentioned, getting up before the other guy, the psychology isn't quite there. And this seems to happen with every generation. Were there veterans that came before you that questioned your style?
No, I learned from them. I mean, I learned from Ray Stevens. I learned from Nick Bockwinkel. I learned from Dick Murdoch. I learned from Harley. I learned from Terry Funk. I learned from Dusty. I mean, I learned from Eddie Graham and Mike Graham. I mean, the list goes down. I mean, the list is endless. Wrestling Brody. I mean, everybody's different, but that's the thing that made me unique. Is even Bret Hart would say to me one time, he said, "How was Brody?" Because it was a lot of guys didn't like working with Frank. Me, it was great. I mean, it was a job, especially when I was wrestling them on Japanese TV, because that's where he made his living. But he always treated me fairly, and he knew that he didn't mind me smacking him in that. And he never one time hurt me. You couldn't have told me that when I was walking through the Budokan to the ring that I wasn't going to get killed, but he never did. I mean, wrestling Stan Hansen for an hour, guys, back in the 80s. You know how many guys in WWE could do that right now?
Not many.
Not many. 0.0.
Wrestle Stan for an hour? Are you kidding me?
But Rick, go into that just dive into that for a minute. Why would it be a challenge or difficult to go with Hansen?
Because it was a shoot.
Okay.
And that, I don't mean intentionally to hurt somebody, but it was a shoot. Those guys that, especially because they made the majority of their money in Japan. And when they were in America, they were just going to destroy anything that got in their way. That's one of the issues that caused problems in Puerto Rico that we don't need to relive. You know what I mean? We're all familiar with that. And I think that all kind of came down to I have to decide whether I want to be known as getting beat in Puerto Rico or arguing about the finish. Does that make sense?
Yes.
If you think about it, Stan and Frank were making 20 and 25 grand a week back in the 80s, guys.
Wow. $25,000 a week.
Back in the 80s, yeah. I was the world champion. If I went there for a week, I made 12 grand. But I didn't go but once every 8 weeks. They went over there 30 weeks a year. Do the math.
Yeah, so there's no way that they're going to hurt their reputation here in the States when you're making that kind of money in Japan.
That's what that would be my take on it. But what they didn't get in the ring to hurt anybody. They just weren't going to sell a lot for you. Does that make sense?
I
Yes.
guess you would have to ask Lex Luger about that in that cage match.
Yeah. Well, Brody was intimidating. I'm not kidding. I mean, even when I got to know him real well, I knew I could see guys that had to wrestle him for the first time, walking around, man, pacing back and forth. And I had to go to him, don't overthink this. It's not going to hurt you, but get prepared to get knocked around a little bit. But that's what our business is all about. I mean, you certainly, you guys, with your hardcore style of working, both Tommy and Bubba, you guys know how physical it was back then. You guys were with Paul and what was it called, ECW? You guys were killing each other. And you know how many guys today in our business would want to do that for a living?
Truth.
The answer you won't hurt anybody's feeling by saying don't mention any names, but I mean it's a whole different world now.
Rick, we're talking about Ricky Steamboat before, and I always bring up Charlotte whenever you are on, and I always looked at Charlotte and Sasha as having that feud and that relationship in the ring, very similar to you and Ricky Steamboat. Now, Sasha Mercedes in AEW, and she just got back to the ring, had her first match this past weekend, and I'm expecting big things moving forward for Mercedes in AEW. But there's also the part of me that misses her in the WWE because of those classic battles that she had with Charlotte.
Yeah.
Do you kind of feel the same way as well? Like you understand the business side, but the professional.
Absolutely. I called her. I called Sasha, and I would say I used to call her Steamboat, kidding with her, and that. Yeah, she was the. When she and Charlotte, I mean, they faked me out a couple times. I can't remember that cage match where I thought Sasha got hurt. And I'm not supposed to be a market. Do you remember that match they had?
Yep, I sure do.
Where the beginning looked like Sasha got hurt and the match was over. I didn't ask her what the finish was, but I thought, geez, I mean, they made their stuff look so real, and they had incredible timing. And I don't think they were ever the best of friends, but it didn't make any difference. They had that level of skill that I haven't seen it relatively. I haven't seen anything relatively close to it since.
Rick, you and I in conversations you've always said that you and Ricky, like you said earlier, just call it out there, but some of your favorite and best matches were non-televised shows that you just went out there and crushed it. Like, again, a lost art, but I've seen grainier footage has been emerging of you and Ricky having these matches. I mean, just again, like, and you would do this 7 days a week, hour a day?
Yeah, and 90 minutes sometimes.
Wow.
Yeah. No, we did 1 year, I can remember we did 300, and I want to say he figured it out because Ricky would always kind of kept track of things, but we did I think 322-hour matches 1 year. That was the marriage, but we took it everywhere and it was successful and it drew, and he was such a heartthrob, you know, when before it became such a guy's soap opera, which I don't mean that derogatorily now, but it's not like it used to be where I'd go 18 to 28, no boyfriends. There's still only 2 girls in the bar, and the same 2 that were there 30 years ago that you don't want to talk to anyway. The days of the beauties, the days of the Cindy Crawford busting down the door of the Marietta are done.
Nate, Dave just asked you, brought up Charlotte. How is she doing? How is her recovery going?
She's doing great. She's making a movie, right now with my good friend Spiff. Oh, she's over in San Domingo, and it's been on her bucket list to make a movie, and it looks like it's going to be a pretty good deal. But her recovery is just unbelievable. She attacked it from day one. She, even regardless of what she's doing, she still works out twice a day. I mean, and I'm sure she's up at 4. I don't know what their filming schedule is yet. I haven't talked to her since she left. I talked to Spiff yesterday, but via text. But you know how it is on the movie set. It's kind of like the respect you have for Dwayne. Dwayne's up lifting weights before he goes on set every day. I mean, Dwayne doesn't miss a workout. And look at him. He looks as good now as he's ever looked.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And people can say what they want to say. There's a lot of hard work in that body.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Now, Rick, there's obviously, this.
And by the way, when you think about these guys that could crack on Dwayne Johnson and say he got to rehearsal late, I'm sure you guys have seen all of that bullshit, right? Hey, it's The Rock. Look at the numbers he brought to you. If he wants to get to the building at 7:45, it's his gig.
Right.
I mean, look what he did for it this year. And they still have a lot of momentum as a result of him being there. And speculation.
But he tried to get himself in the main event at WrestleMania 40. How did that work out? But yeah, you're right. He is one of the greats, though. There's no doubt.
Well, he's just a star. He's bigger than the business.
Yeah.
Rick, so you know, Dave was the guy in the pink robe that Rock called out. So there's some animosity. Rock literally made Dave even more famous, but the Cody crybaby. So Dave took it a bit offensive. So you know.
What happened?
It doesn't matter, Rick. All that matters is that we got
Cody Crybabies. Dave is the OG Cody Crybaby.
Yeah, we got
Rock
Cody
called him out on an Instagram and Twitter post, and it blew up. Dave's passive aggressiveness.
So Dave likes Cody.
Dave is
Cody.
That would be an understatement, Nate.
Well, I like Cody too, but I'm telling you, you just can't. The Rock did it with Vicky Guerrero. He did it with Stephanie. When he singing to Cody's mom. I mean, are you entertained?
Sure. Of course. I mean, there's and The Rock has obviously, and it's good to see this, and I mean this in all seriousness.
Yeah.
He's a guy that could have came in, did 2 appearances, one the week before WrestleMania. And
Exactly.
He dedicated himself week in and week out to be a part of that show, to build that story. So it's impossible not to respect The Rock.
Yeah, he put a lot of time into it, and he, whatever he touches. I'm a huge fan of his, and I've known him since he was 12 years old. He's making a movie on my life now, which I'm really looking forward to. That'll be interesting. He just got it took him a while to find his niche. He ran around with Ron. Can't remember what the name of that group was.
Nation of Domination.
Yeah, but once he got his niche, man, he took off. And he and Steve and Taker and Triple H and Shawn, I mean, going back to the WCW stuff, they pulled it out for Vince. Kurt, I mean, and Jericho had a big part to do with it. I mean, and those were all guys that we, not The Rock, but basically some of the characters that I strongly suggested. I was working for WCW. When I saw Kurt, he said, "Where should I go?" And I called Vince right there from the gym. I said, "You don't want to go to Atlanta, brother. You will get lost."
Wow.
All the politics going on there, guys.
Woo.
So Kurt Angle came to you for advice on where to go, and you told him, do not go to WCW.
I'll call Kurt right now. We were at a gym working out in Nashville, Tennessee. And I had met Kurt several times. And he walked over and said, "I'm thinking about doing getting into wrestling." He said, "What do you think?" And I said, he said, "What do you think about me going to WCW?" I said, if I were you right now, and I thought about it for a second, I said, give me a minute. I went to the locker room, got my phone, came out, I called Vince, put him on the phone, and he was working out with Dory Funk Jr. 2 weeks later.
Wow.
When Dory was training, yeah, WCW. They would have destroyed. I mean, nobody's going to destroy Kurt Angle, but they would have seen him coming and with all that talent. And trust me, Kurt, when healthy,
Absolutely.
is absolutely one of the great ones. That moonsault stuff off the top of the cage and all that stuff. I mean, Kurt is a special kind of athlete and a special kind of guy.
Hell yeah.
And legitimately really tough. So, and that's something else people don't know about Steamboat. Steamboat's tough. You've never heard anybody give him the Steamboat and his shit. He's quiet, laid back, lay in the corner, but don't push his buttons.
I mean, how could you not be training under Vern and what you all went
Yeah.
through? I mean, he
Yeah, but
talked about running the steps with Iron Sheik on his back.
Yeah, it was worse than that. It was, I was telling the guy that writing my book, said, what's the hardest thing you ever did in the business? And I said, I reported to Vern's camp. We trained on his farm. And it was late September because Ken had just gotten back from the Olympic Games, 72 games, right? And we think, I weighed 300. I thought we were going to be like Dick the Bruiser. And he goes, we ran 2 miles in a cornfield, not on a high school track, in a cornfield, 500 free squats, 250 push-ups, 250 sit-ups. How long do you think it took me? Take a guess.
A while?
Don't take a guess.
4 hours.
7.
Wow.
I was still there at 9 o'clock at night.
And he wasn't going to let you quit until you finished the regimen, right?
No. 5. First of all, I hadn't run a mile since my freshman year in college for football, right? Now I'm 300, and I weigh 230 pounds, and now I'm a 310-pound fat boy. And then I'd never done a free squat. I mean, the next day I couldn't even move. Yeah. I just said, screw this. And he came and got me everything in that 30 for 30, the truth. He walked in, I was living in a duplex, and he came in and grabbed me off the couch, slapped the shit out of me, threw me out in the front yard, and said, "You've quit everything you've ever done." Like I quit college football and whatever else he had. I mean, I can't remember, but I went back out there. But man, it went from 7 hours to 6 to 5 to 4, and we did it every damn day. And we did that for 3 weeks before we ever got in the ring.
Wow.
And then think about this. Then their deal was to blow you up so bad and have Billy Robinson, who was I guess you would call him a bully, get on top of you and hold you down to see if you could take what's the word I'm looking for? I mean, if you would quit. You know what I mean? Not ride you, but put you on your back and tell you to get away, and spend an hour doing that. No, we did all. I mean, and then that's how when Robinson couldn't turn Vaziri over, that's when he dropped his knee in Khosrow's thighs.
Right.
And Khosrow couldn't walk. But Khosrow was in a wheelchair for 2 weeks. He told him to get in a referee's position like this. Billy got up and he dropped his knee right in the side. I mean,
tried to break his leg.
I was standing next to Brunzell, and I pushed Brunzell next to line. I'm not ashamed to admit it. Forget that shit.
Nate, you just talk.
I am not a shooter.
Nate,
go ahead.
Real quick story, because you just mentioned about being 300 pounds. You mentioned being a power lifter. I remember being in the ring with you for the first time, and you chopped me. And I no-sold the chop, not out of disrespect, but because I thought you had something in your hand. I said to myself, what the fuck did he just hit me with? And you pushed me back again, and you chopped me again. And I just remember I felt like I got hit with a brick. I did not, it wasn't until after the match that I was reminded by somebody in the locker room that you were a 300-pound, 300-pound powerlifter one time.
I totaled 1640.
But your hands are so much bigger and thicker than what your stature was when you were working.
Yeah.
So Tommy, Dave, like seriously, I felt like I got chopped by the Big Show. That's how thick and strong Ric's hands are.
No,
and yes, I know sold a Ric Flair chop.
No, and trust me, I used to hit Steamboat as hard as I could. You guys saw it, as he would me. That's what made it real. When you're out in front of the crowd, outside in the ring, and you're hauling off and smacking, you know me, I would gig myself and throw the blood in the crowd. But Steamboat could lay it in too, man. He never covered up one time. I mean, I don't have a lot of offense. It's a chop, a woo, and drop a knee in the forehead, and that's it. I mean,
but Ric, I think, and maybe it goes back to the stories that you're telling about when you first started training about your conditioning. Like there's this old story, and I don't know if it's true. You can maybe debunk the myth. But I remember you wrestled Terry Taylor at the Superdome in January of '85. And the whole story is, for those who don't know, that this is Terry Taylor's like main event match against the Nature Boy Ric Flair for the NWA Championship. And Terry Taylor's obviously a little bit nervous, a little anxious, and there's no Ric Flair. And then Ric Flair shows up. The story is a little hungover with a cup of coffee in his hand, and is like, "Let me lay down here, take a nap for 15 minutes, and I'll be ready." And Terry Taylor's like, "This is the match of his career, the match of his life," and he's like, "This guy's not ready to wrestle." And then 45 minutes into the match, he's begging you, like, please, let's end this. Let's end this. Like, how true is that myth or story?
Well, it's probably true about the coffee and all that, but the thing that I never showed up, and you guys don't remember, I never showed up to an arena, especially because Muhammad Ali was there that night, not tricked out. So could I have been hungover? Possibly. But I can guarantee you that morning before I got on the plane, wherever I came from, I did 500 squats, as you guys know I did every day of my life until I bought my first Stairmaster. So, no, I love Terry Taylor, but and by the way, Terry's a hell of a worker. But the match was getting over so good, and the crowd was buying it. I said, man, let's just keep this thing going. I used to do that with Steamboat all the time. I'd go, Ricky, man, we've got these guys. We're having fun. We just have to get to the bar an hour later. You know what I mean?
Nate, were there ever times where you had every intention of going out there for an hour, but there just was no chemistry and you took it home real early?
No. I mean, unfortunately, I didn't have that leverage. You know what I mean? But I have been in situations when I wanted to take it home early. Ashley's in San Domingo right now, so I sent her that story about me and Jack Veneno when it was the hot potato.
Yep.
We had a full-scale riot, and I just gave the referee the back the belt, and they were pulling me out of the ring, beating the living shit out of me, and getting back, and I had to stay in the locker room. They turned over my taxi cab, and they burnt the building down. And so then I went back to get it again, and I brought Piper with me, of course, which was the worst mistake in the world. But Roddy come out carrying the American flag. Even worse, we had another riot. The stuff we used to do.
Good times.
Yeah, and then the same thing in Trinidad. So let me see. That's 16, 17, when Harley looked at me in New Zealand and said, Ricky, let's do Rick Hard a favor, and you drop the belt to me tonight, and I give it back to you tomorrow in Christchurch. Harley, we're gonna get in trouble. Who's gonna know? Next day. But guy go, what have you done? I said, what Harley asked me to do, quite honestly. That's 18. And then the time when I beat Sting with Sherry, which was so entertaining, to get ready to wrestle Hulk, and They didn't count that as a world title match either. I don't know what I had to do
To break your own records.
Listen, I'm going to play that card when somebody breaks 16.
Ain't gonna happen. Ain't gonna happen anytime soon. Rick, there's always so much to talk about with you. Who Killed WCW is coming out next week as well. So, like you were talking about WCW before, that documentary.
Fire away, guys. Fire away.
No, I mean, I'm really interested in that documentary, and I know like that this is something that is a part of your career and a part of your life. Some of the best moments of your career came from that time, but some of the worst moments, and I know, emotionally that you hit some low points during that time. When you look at WCW, do you look at it with some fondness, or do you look back at WCW and you think, it's probably best for pro wrestling that there is no longer a WCW?
Well, it's definitely not good for pro wrestling. There's no longer a WCW, but there are so many reasons why it fell apart, and what it became is it became a political nightmare, and it wasn't fun to be a wrestler at that point in time. But in all fairness to the guys, and I wasn't prepared, number one, because I'd never been involved in politics. Well, first of all, I'll give you a story that very few people know. So the Crockett's were $9 million in debt, and they sold the company to Vince. All that, which was basically the library, which you couldn't put a price tag on, for $9 million, right? So when I got there, I had no contract, and the guy that negotiated, I want to say his name was Steve Chamberlain. I mean, you can Google it. The guy that negotiated said, "Why didn't you just hold these guys up and get a deal of a lifetime?" And I said, "Why would I have done that?" He said, "Well, we wouldn't have bought the company if we'd known you didn't have a contract." So Dusty and Jimmy, I never talked to Jimmy after that. They told them that I was under contract. I wasn't.
Wow.
I mean, that's a big scoop. That's in my book. A lot of people don't know. They would not have bought the company. Jimmy told them that I was under contract for 3 years. And from that day forward, because it became a nightmare between Jack Petrick and Jim Hurd, and then from Hurd to Eric to Vince Russo. I mean, I don't know. Somebody, I guess Jake Roberts said last week that thing they did with me, where they put me in a mental institution, that it was the worst TV ever. And I said, I wanted to tweet out, "You must have missed the part where they buried me in the desert." And then 2 weeks later, Russo called me and said, "Terry Funk, I heard I need you back at work." And I said, it's a little hard to get up from being buried in the desert. You guys gonna come get me or what? And I mean, it was crazy. And then when another big story is when I wrestled Hulk the first time and lost in Disney. That is the money they used to finance. Hulk told me this about a year ago. That's the money they used to finance Nitro, which I never knew about. And then we go to the second match in Des Moines, Iowa, the thing where we did the Tanya Henning, remember when
Tanya
Harding. Yeah.
Tanya Harding thing, but a great idea on Arn's part, but Hulk still went over, right? So now we're going to Detroit with Ali and Mr. T and all that, and Eric and Bill Shaw, and I cannot think of the gentleman's name now. He's passed away. The guy that promoted for him from Colorado. Do you guys remember his name?
No.
No, they said, "Well, tickets aren't going good in Detroit. Can we put your career up on the line?" And I said, "Well, why would you expect tickets to be going good in career in Detroit when I've lost twice in a row, and he's the babyface, I'm the heel, and we're in the cage. What did you expect? They said, well, we'll put your career on the line. And we'll give you we'll pay you to sit at home for a year. So I said, okay. So we went because it was fun. I love wrestling Hulk, and we had fun. Sherry got involved, Jimmy got involved. Mr. T kept saying, "You're gonna hurt me. You're gonna hurt me." I said, "God, no, I'm gonna hurt you, Mr. Tough Guy Contest. Get in here." I've seen some funny things over the years. He was so worried we're gonna beat him up in the cage. So, and then I made Bill Shaw come to the locker room. I said, I'm signing it. That's the only reason I'm doing this. And sure enough, I was home 2 weeks. And who did they call to come back to work?
You.
I said, what happened to the year? Forget the year. We need you back now. And that's when I came out of the crowd with the wig on. Remember all that bullshit.
Yep.
By the way, Rick, you and Hogan should have happened at WrestleMania. I'll say it to this day. I don't want to hear about, house shows, chemistry. I mean, everybody for over a decade wanted to see that dream match between you and Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
That match should have happened at WrestleMania. Period. End the sentence.
I wish it would have, but I've got to be quite honest with you, and I know people have a hard time. I was so happy to be away from that drama and that insanity of WCW that I went up there and I got to hang around Teddy DiBiase, Terry, the Road Warriors who I've enjoyed. I got to wrestle Hogan, Bret Hart, Piper. I mean, we got to wrestle Randy, even though it was a tough time in his life because he and Liz were going through a difficult struggle in their personal life. But to think of all those guys I got to wrestle that I never would have had an opportunity to had I stayed there. And then the story goes, the wire dropped me on my head, and not intentionally, in Phoenix, and I was Charles Barkley and Earl Hebner, and I rolled out to the floor and I couldn't get up. And all of a sudden, I realized that I had an inner ear problem. So they flew me to Calgary or where it was, and I dropped the belt to Bret but I couldn't even give Bret a good match because every time I took a bump, that little thing in your ear, it's like it's a tube, but it's like oil, right? That little chip would fall back. It would take me like between 5 and 10 seconds to get my balance back up, and then I was fine. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yep.
I couldn't give Bret a good match, but then I went home, and then that was it. And then when I came back to work, and Bill Watts has been calling and wanted me to come back there, and then said to me, he said, "Look at these are the stories that I hope are told. If they're not, maybe they don't even know them. But he said you can wrestle Razor Ramon, but I'm going to go young, or you can lose to Hennig and lose or leave town on the second Raw from the building downtown. What was that called?
Manhattan Center.
Manhattan Center. So the first Raw, I wrestled Santana, and Kurt interfered. So the next match, lose or leave town, me and Kurt, bingo. I love Kurt. Put him over right in the middle. Flew into Atlanta, and by the time I got there, Watts had been fired over an inappropriate comment about Hank Aaron. I can't even remember what it was. And Ole's the booker. And Ole, how Ole would be. He said, what good are you to me now? You just lost on national TV last night. And I said, Ole, looking at the roster and what you got going on here, I'm your most valuable player if I lose 10 times on WWE TV. And I walked over to the guy's office, Bob Dew, and I said, Bob, it's me or him right now. Goodbye, Ole. Bob said, who do you think can run the company? I said, that young guy downstairs seems to like it a lot, and he seems like a nice guy. Who was that?
Bischoff.
Eric.
Worst thing I could have ever recommended.
Wow.
He did pretty good though, Rick.
Hey, I know. No, he goes to me. Do you know Hulk Hogan? I said, yeah, real well. He said, do you think you could talk him to come in here? We fly down to Orlando, drive into the Everglades where Hulk is filming Thunder in Paradise. I sat in the car. This is I drive Hogan crazy telling this story. I sat in the car for 2 hours. I should have demanded to be part of the meeting. And Hulk came out with a $15 million a year deal and 25% of everybody's marketing. And I still had my $500,000 account.
Before we go on, though, I want to tell everybody about my favorite place to shop, and it's where Violetta goes for all my birthday gifts and holiday gifts, and that's RicFlairShop.com. During the commercial break, Rick, I ordered, and Bully, I know you're a big fan, I ordered flip-flops, Ric Flair flip-flops, and I bought a Woo bowl for my dog Cody. So go to RicFlairShop.com. T-shirts, hats, outerwears, tops, leggings, tank tops, also signed merchandise as well, posters, original art. So go to RicFlairShop.com right now for everything Ric Flair. So do that right now. So
Thank you.
Woo!
absolutely. But Rick, what else you got coming up? I mean, you always have something coming up. So what's on the horizon for you?
Yeah, but we're dropping the cannabis in 6 new states. So I go to dropping in Missouri, New York, Massachusetts. Our biggest problem right now, but if you combine Mike's 2.0 and my Ric Flair drip, is we're having problems with people with manufacture with the size of companies that are able to manufacture that the demand for it. So
Wow.
it's a nice problem to have.
Yeah.
Mike's in the hospital, right?
Yeah, he had an
No.
episode. He had an
Yeah.
episode on a plane.
Yeah. You guys got an ulcer issue. But
Yeah.
he's gonna be okay.
Hey, Dave, let me tell you about one of my favorite Ric Flair moments.
Go ahead.
Columbia, South Carolina, because Rick, from his WCW, and this is documented by Rick, didn't have something that I could never believe Ric Flair didn't have, and that would be confidence. And it's Columbia, South Carolina. He's going to wrestle Triple H, and he cuts this promo, and he's putting on.
Greenville.
Okay, yep, sorry. And he puts on the robe, and he flicks back his hair, and I'm just a fly in the room, and I'm watching something happen. It was that confidence. And I went through the channels, and I went to Sean, then I went to Hunter, and they went to Vince, and I was just like, this is a magical moment. He goes out there, crushes it, and me and Bully are the first to hit the ring. We pick him up, put him on our shoulders, because right then and there, I watched the greatest of all time know that he was the greatest of all time because of what he went through. It was a magical moment. I'll never forget it. I'm blessed to call him my friend, but when I saw that happen, and I also then realized how old this man was, and doing the things and taking the bumps, because now I'm 53 years old and not doing the schedule that this man was doing. I have more love and appreciation for him, but I also have love and appreciation for Triple H for helping him with that confidence and that guidance, and to see the best version of Ric Flair that we're seeing today. So that's my care and love for this man, because I got to see it live. And then WWE, because they knew it was right, did the right thing and portrayed it such as a special event. And Rick felt it. We all did. And that's why I always say wrestling moments are real. And this guy has given us more real moments. And, you know it, Dave. You still say the I Quit match versus Terry Funk's greatest match you've ever seen.
Yep.
And that's why he is the man. He's the GOAT. And I love him. And I love him till the day I pass away. Thank you, Rick, for just being you always.
Well,
Sorry to make you upset, but I love to give people their flowers while they're here.
no, I appreciate it, but it's the truth. If Hunter and Vince hadn't brought me back, and I was never supposed to wrestle, well, it's not part of the deal.
Yep.
But the two of them are solely responsible for everything I accomplished later in life. Vince and Hunter did it all. These guys, I didn't have any confidence at all.
I didn't mean to make you upset, Rick. I just
No,
I
I'm
needed
just
to say
thinking
that.
about. I'm thinking about what you said because when Hunter said you're going to wrestle me tonight, I about froze. I wanted to say I don't have my gear. I mean, I just didn't have it. Oh God, there's so many. That's why I just. Well, I don't know what's going on personally. It's none of my business. But I'll never ever be able to thank Hunter and Vince enough.
You just did, bro.
We love you, Nate.
Thank you, buddy. Thank you.
I mean, you're the greatest of all time, Rick, and I'm proud and honored to be able to call you my friend and to be able to watch you. And I always say it to Bully and Tommy all the time. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have a career and wouldn't be able to support my family because it's my love for you that grew into my love for pro wrestling. So I can't thank you enough for everything that you've given to all of us as fans
Thank
and
you. Well,
obviously.
I love talking to you guys. You know, that's one thing I miss the most is all of us getting together. Bully and Tommy and all that. I mean,
Can't wait to have a Bloody Mary with you, my friend.
Yeah, no. I mean, unless at a wrestling convention or once a year at Mania, we never get to see each other. And I feel like it just.
Well, you know what, Nate? You're in Tampa, right?
Yeah,
I'm going to be in Tampa in a couple of weeks. I'm going to hit you up and we'll get together.
they'll do it.
Yep.
All right.
And I'll come too.
All right.
I don't ever
There we
take
go.
vacations. I'll be there. I don't drink, but I'll have a drink too.
You don't drink?
Don't stand me up, Nate.
Never.
Oh, well, I won't. You may never leave Tampa. You know what they call my place? I rented the penthouse on top of a bar. They call it the fraternity house. Wendy can only come for a week at a time. She can't take it.
You know, and Rick, and the one thing I have to ask you, because I see how emotional you get when you talk about what you've given and how much you've given, and you've given everything to this business and to us fans. I just want to make sure that you're happy and that you're in a good place right now.
I am. But it's always nice to hear something nice from people that respect. At the end of the day, for what we've done, and we don't have degrees in medicine. We're not lawyers. All we can ask for is the respect of our counterparts and people that have done what we've done. And I feel like you guys give me a lot of respect, and I never take it for granted.
Rick, I deal with a lot of younger talent, and when they throw these chops and they no sell it, I do this stuff. I literally go, "You want to see wrestling that's real?" And I show them you and Steamboat exchanging, selling, registering, how it's supposed to be, and they drop their jaw because your body of work still holds up today, and it's the best form of artwork you'll ever see on how to do things correctly.
Thank you, guys. I love you.